Welcome to Dave's Devos. My name is Calvin Friend. I'm one of the volunteers at River of Life, and we're thankful to have you here with us on this day. I have a confession to make as I start. Well, actually probably two confessions. And the first one is that I don't always get my driveway cleaned off right when it snows. And the second confession is closely related to the first, because the second confession is I get a little bit carried away when it comes to trying to clean the driveway off later. Now, the first confession we'll take for what it's worth, because a lot of times it's the wind, right? It blows the snow back across the driveway, even when, Tina or my daughter have cleared it off. But the second confession is that I get a little bit carried away. And so I was out there again on Saturday, breaking that ice off the driveway or the packed down snow. And I don't know how productive it is to actually be out there. I mean, the sun's coming out, right? But also, I guess I really kind of enjoy it. I enjoy getting out there and just working physically for a while. And I even enjoy the feeling of pain in my back when I try to stand up after I've been pushing myself too hard and not being used to that kind of physical labor any longer. But I've developed a mantra over the years that has helped quite a bit, and that is to work with the sun. So the sun is shining down, and when the sun is shining down, you got to kind of follow the sun and work with the sun, because if you work against the sun, you're just causing yourself all kinds of extra work. And then I was thinking this Saturday as I was out there that it's kind of a fun pun, because I like puns, but also a good analogy or metaphor for life, and especially that little thing called sin management that Pastor Dave was talking about yesterday. How do we manage the sin that's in our lives? And I want to say today that it's really about working with the sun, S-O-N, rather than with the sun. So two areas especially I want to focus on. And one is to work with the sun in the place that the sun is working. So our driveway is long and thin, but then it has a little bump out piece to the side where if you back out of the driveway, out of the garage, you can back up into that little bump out, and then you can turn around and head straight out the driveway. As far as the driveway goes, though, that's the least of my priorities. When I think of what's priority, I want to have that focus on that long, thin strip that we actually drive on, because that is the place I want cleared. Unfortunately, the sun, S-U-N, focuses its attention over there on that little bump out piece. And so I'm out in that little bump out piece, and I can make all sorts of progress, getting rid of the snow, getting rid of the ice. If I wait just a little while, the sun will turn it into slush, and all I have to do is push it out of the way, and it goes really quickly. So work with the sun in the place that the sun is shining, and the work goes more efficiently and more quickly. But it applies to our lives as well, spiritually. Because there are areas of our lives that the Son, Jesus, wants to work on and change that might not be the same priorities as we have. And so I'm thinking of the Apostle Paul, who had this thorn in his flesh, and he prayed, and he wanted so desperately for that thorn to be taken out of his side, to have that area of his life dealt with, and whatever that means, but God had other plans. And Paul fought for that area to be dealt with, and it didn't happen. God, on the other hand, was working in another area of his life, and specifically showing him how to live by grace. It wasn't Paul's priority, but it's the work that God accomplished. And how would it have changed if Paul had been focusing on grace rather than having that removed from his life? And I think it's just such an apt analogy for how we work in our lives. I mean, we have priorities, right, for what needs to change and what God needs to deal with in our lives. We might have an area of sin, perhaps, that's just uncomfortable, that we don't like, or maybe it's becoming a glaring reality in our lives. And so it seems like that's the place that we need to focus. But God might have his attention focused somewhere else. Or maybe it's not even an area of sin, it's just an area that we want to have changed. Maybe a place where we want God's righteousness to come in, but God has his focus somewhere else. So, for example, it might be in my life, it was not necessarily an area of sin, but for a long time, it was relationships. I wanted for God to change how I related to other people and make me more outgoing or make me more able to invest in those relationships. And I was struggling with this kind of lingering feelings of depression. And I thought, those are clearly the areas that God needs to deal with. But he didn't seem to be focused on those at all. He was over there changing other parts of my life. And as I look back, I see the work that he was at work doing in me, but I wasn't working with the Son. I was trying to work on my own area and just getting more and more frustrated by that. Or sometimes it's not about our own lives, but we're looking at other people's lives and we think that has got to be the area of sin in their life that has to be the high priority for right now. And so I'm going to focus my attention on it, or maybe God needs to focus his attention on it, but it's not the place where the sun is shining, that God is doing something else in their lives. And maybe we need to find out how we can cooperate with that. So work with the sun, because the sun is shining sometimes in different places than we want the sun to shine. That God is working in our lives in different places than sometimes we want him to be at work, but we'll be far more effective. We'll see far more progress if we focus on the areas that God is focusing on. So work with him in his place and then work with him at his pace. Because it used to be I'd get out there on the driveway and I'd just keep going, man. And it didn't matter if it was in the shade and that ice was frozen rock solid to the ground. I'm going to work it loose. And what I've learned over the years, through many sore muscles, is that it works a whole lot better if you work at the sun's pace. So when the sun is shining on that area, I can clear it. And maybe I'm breaking up ice because it's water is flowing underneath and I just need to pull it loose. But when I get to the edge where the sun's not working anymore, I just stop. And it's frustrating for me because I want it done right now. But God's pace, the sun's pace, is a little bit different for my driveway, and it's a little bit different in my life as well. I want sin. If I notice an area of sin, I want it dealt with right now. Or if I have an area of my life that I want to see God work righteousness, I want it done right now, especially with patience, right? We have that. God, teach me patience right now. And it doesn't always work that way. So we work with God in the place that he's working, and we work with God at the pace that he's working. And we just have that patience that says, God, I know you are changing me. You are changing me. And so I want to follow what you are doing. And so just a passage of scripture, and then we'll close with prayer. This is from Jeremiah 31. And Jeremiah, God is talking to the people of Israel and the people of Judah, and they've probably been out there fasting. They've been making their sacrifices. They've been doing all these things in their lives that they think are the top priorities, and maybe even dealing with some areas in their lives that they think are the top priorities. But God comes and says, you know what, you people, you're just missing it. You've got these idols that are set up. You've got these foreign gods that you're worshiping. That's the area that I want to address. And he does address. And there's this word of rebuke and this word of correction and even this promise of punishment. And then, in his time, God comes back to them and talks about the work that he's going to do in them. Jeremiah 31 through 34. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt, because they broke my covenant, though I was a husband to them, declares the Lord. This is the covenant I will make with the people of Israel after that time, declares the Lord. I will put my law in their minds and write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. No longer will they teach their neighbor or say to one another, know the Lord, because they will all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares the Lord. For I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more. In his time, God comes to do his work at his place in our lives, in his pace in our lives. But the transformation that he makes is full and complete. So the challenge then is to find out where God is working in our lives, or in our family members' lives, or our neighbors' lives, and work with God at his pace in those areas so that we see great progress. So today, the challenge is simply that. Ask God, show me what you want to do in my life. Cloud my vision to what my priorities are. Cloud my eyes to all of that, and simply quiet my spirit so I can know, what do you want to do in my life today? And how can I cooperate with you in the work that you're doing? So that's the prayer. Pray it, and then have eyes to be able to see. So have a great day, everybody. Hoping you have the opportunity to get out and enjoy some of the sunshine, as well as enjoy some of the sun's work in your life.